From Montana's news leader, this is the MTN Noon News.
Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us on the Noon News. I'm Andrea Lutz. We're taking a look at the history of Amtrak in our state after Sunday's deadly train derailment. That story in a minute, but first an update on the investigation. The tracks are back open and there are new details this afternoon in that deadly Amtrak train crash on Montana's High Line. Here's today's leading look. Federal officials will review a black box from the train in order to learn what happened. Experts are going to be studying that camera footage frame by frame, and they plan to remain on scene for a week. Investigators say they're not ruling anything out when it comes to the cause of the crash. A preliminary report should be available in the next 30 days. Officials say it is possible that passengers were ejected from the train. The U.S. Forest Service continues to monitor what it's calling the Moose Fire, burning off Homestake Pass south of Butte. The fires burned 28 acres and firefighters attacked it initially using helicopters with water drops. The Homestake Lodge was momentarily threatened, but the owners say they are grateful for a quick response to save the structure. Happening in Missoula, 75 Afghan refugees are expected to arrive in the coming weeks. Those refugees have special immigrant visas through the Afghan Placement and Assistance Program. So far, Missoula has welcomed 7 refugees and a family from U.S. military bases in Texas and New Mexico. Federal officials say the refugees may spend a month or more going through security checks, vetting, interviews, and health screenings. The Billings flying community is mourning the loss of 2 well-known flying instructors after they died in a plane crash Sunday night. Rob and Pam Stevens died in that crash, and their son Riley was injured, suffering burns on 70% of his body. The Stevens were owners of the Billings-based Mission Aviation. The company's website says Rob was a pilot for a major airline for 30 years. Riley, a certified flight instructor for the company. Easier access to marijuana is not making it more use when it comes to that, according to new research. The study says there's no substantial increase in use among people living in states with legalized marijuana. 18 states in the District of Columbia have legalized recreational marijuana for adults, including Montana. That's today's leading look.
Got a cold front making its way through the region right now. In fact, we can already see as we take a look at our highs today exactly where we're already seeing those cooler temperatures starting to come in into the 50s in the northwest corner of the state. We still have some 90s on the eastern side. It's going to take a little while for that cold front to make its way through. Already starting to see some rain on the back end of that. Still a chance we could see some showers central and eastern parts of Montana, down in northern Wyoming as well. Very dry today too, central parts of the state over to the east and down into northern parts of Wyoming, where we see low humidity and we could see gusty winds 35 to 40 miles an hour. So that high fire danger, really a red flag warning in effect today. But what will that cold front do to us temperature wise moving forward? We'll take a look coming up.
The roots of the Empire Builder train and the rail line that it runs on go back to Montana's early days as a state.
The railroads basically built Montana.
The line across northern Montana was built in the 1880s and 1890s by the Great Northern Railway. Dan Stinson is part of the Western Montana Railroad Historical Association. He says the passengers coming in on the line immediately reshaped that part of the state.
And one of the important things for the railroads was that the railroads brought settlers. The railroads wanted people to live along the lines, to use it for trade, to use it for travel. And so transportation was often the driving force early.
The Empire Builder began as a name for Great Northern's premier trains between Chicago and Seattle and Portland. In 1971, Amtrak took over the service. For the last 40 years, it's been the only Amtrak train running through Montana after the southern route was discontinued. Stinson says the Empire Builder remains an important corridor for the High Line.
Buses are almost non-existent. Flights out of the High Line are almost non-existent, so they're reliant on the railroads, especially lower income people and retired people.
Stinson says he's not aware of any accidents like this on the line for at least a decade.
That line is very heavily used and very heavily maintained. To have any kind of an accident at all is really unusual. It's really sad anytime there's a loss of life. Luckily, the locals came together and did the things Montanans do best when it gets tough, is rescued people.
Stinson says while the work on the track continues, it's possible that some high-priority freight trains may be redirected through Helena. In Helena, Jonathan Amberian, MTN News.